Imagine coming home expecting an important delivery, only to find it missing. The tracking says delivered, but your porch is empty. Now, imagine checking your security footage and seeing your HOA president, a self-righteous Brenda, casually stealing your mail like it's her right. That's exactly what happened to me, and trust me, I wasn't about to let her get away with it. It started like any other day. I had been waiting for an important package, one I had been tracking for weeks. It wasn't just some random online order. It was something I needed, something valuable. The moment I saw the delivered notification, I rushed outside, excited to finally have it in my hands. But the excitement turned to confusion when I saw my porch was empty. Maybe the driver left it somewhere else. I checked the usual places, behind the flower pots, near the garage, even by the side gate. Nothing. My heart sank a little, but I tried to stay rational. Sometimes deliveries got marked as delivered a little early. Maybe it would show up later. Hours passed. I checked my tracking again, and it was clear this wasn't a delay. My package was supposed to be right there. The sinking feeling turned into irritation. Porch pirates? That was unlikely. My neighborhood was supposedly safe, or at least that's what the HOA kept bragging about in their overpriced newsletters. Then I remembered my security cameras. If someone had stolen my package, I'd have it on tape. I pulled up the footage on my phone, scrolling back to the time of delivery. At first, I saw the mailman approaching, placing the package down exactly where it should be. He left, and the package sat undisturbed for about 20 minutes. Then, movement. A woman walked up my driveway, head held high as if she owned the place. It only took a second to recognize her. Brenda, our beloved HOA president. My jaw clenched as I watched the footage. She didn't hesitate, didn't even look around to see if anyone was watching. She just walked up, grabbed my package, tucked it under her arm, and strolled off like she was doing me a favor. I rewound the footage, watching it again in disbelief. She had the audacity to steal my package in broad daylight. It wasn't like she made a mistake and took it by accident. No, her expression was smug, like she had every right to do it. Anger boiled inside me. Who did she think she was? This wasn't a misplaced fine or some ridiculous violation notice. This was theft, and not just any theft. Mail theft, a federal crime. I clenched my fists and took a deep breath. I wasn't going to let this slide. Without hesitation, I grabbed my phone and marched straight to Brenda's house. Her place wasn't hard to find. It was the one with a perfectly manicured lawn and an HOA-approved color scheme. She loved to flaunt her power, making sure her home was the shining example of proper neighborhood aesthetics. I rang the doorbell, taking a deep breath to control my temper. Moments later, Brenda appeared, opening the door with a smug smile. "Ah, you," she said, crossing her arms. "What can I do for you?" I wasted no time. "Where's my package?" Her smile didn't even falter. "Package? I have no idea what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and played the security footage right in front of her. Her face paled slightly, but to my amazement, she didn't back down. "Oh, that package," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "Yes, I took it. It was left out in the open. I was simply keeping it safe." I blinked. "Safe?" "Yes," she said, sighing dramatically. "It was just sitting there. Anyone could have taken it. As HOA president, I take security very seriously. I plan to return it to you at the next board meeting." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That's nonsense. You stole my package. Give it back." She scoffed. "You should really be thanking me, honestly. With how irresponsible some homeowners are, leaving things outside like that. Cut the crap, Brenda. Give me my package now." Her lips curled into a smug smile. "I'm afraid it's already been processed." I frowned. "Processed?" She waved a hand dismissively. "We have rules in this neighborhood. Packages left out for too long are considered abandoned property, and as HOA president, I have the authority to confiscate and redistribute as needed." I laughed in disbelief. "That's not a thing. That's not how the HOA works. That's not how anything works." She tilted her head, still smirking. "Well, you'll have to take it up with the board then. I'm sure they'll agree with me." My patience snapped. "Fine. I'll take it up with the police." For the first time, a flicker of something crossed her face. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. But it was gone just as fast. "Oh, don't be dramatic," she scoffed. "It was just a package." I narrowed my eyes. "A federal offense, Brenda. Mail theft is a serious crime. You might think your little HOA kingdom makes you untouchable, but let's see how well that smug attitude holds up when the authorities get involved." For the first time, she faltered. "You wouldn't dare." I pulled out my phone. "Watch me." She hesitated for a moment, then huffed. All right. No need to get so worked up. I'll look into where your package ended up. Do that, I said. Because if I don't have it back by tomorrow, I'm pressing charges. I turned on my heel and walked away, fuming. She might have thought she was untouchable, but she was about to learn just how wrong she was. Brenda had messed with the wrong person, and I wasn't just going to get my package back. I was going to take her down. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brenda's smug face, her condescending smirk as she dismissed my stolen package like it was her right to take it. By morning, my anger had settled into something colder, determination. I wasn't just going to get my package back. I was going to make sure she never pulled something like this again. At exactly 9 a.m., I marched back to her house. This time, I wasn't alone. I had called a couple of my neighbors, people who had also dealt with her nonsense. They weren't victims of stolen packages, as far as they knew, but they had received ridiculous HOA fines, unfair warnings, and threats of liens over the most minor infractions. Brenda had ruled the HOA like a queen, but today she was about to get dethroned. I rang her doorbell, my jaw tight. Brenda opened the door wearing a silky robe, holding a cup of coffee like she didn't have a care in the world. When she saw the group standing behind me, her eyes narrowed just a bit. Well, this is unexpected. She sipped her coffee slowly. Back so soon. I want my package, Brenda, I said, voice steady now. She sighed dramatically, stepping onto her porch. I told you already, I was keeping it safe. But seeing as you insist on making a scene, you stole it. I cut in. And you lied about HOA rules to justify it. Brenda gave me a tight smile. Let's not be so dramatic. I was merely enforcing HOA policies. You really should read the guidelines. Packages left unattended are considered a security risk. As president, That's a lie, a voice said from my side. It was Mark, one of my neighbors, a longtime resident. There's nothing in the HOA bylaws about confiscating packages. I've read every page. Brenda's eye twitched. Well, it's an unwritten rule, she said. Some things are just common sense. Mail theft is a federal crime, Brenda, I said, pulling out my phone. And I have you on camera. So unless you want to deal with the police, I suggest you return what you stole. Brenda's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. Honestly, all this fuss over a little box. Where is it? I demanded. She took another sip of coffee. I'll have to check with the compliance committee. The compliance committee? I repeated. What are you talking about? She rolled her eyes. The package was turned over for inspection. We have to ensure no contraband is being delivered to the community. I blinked. Contraband? Are you seriously trying to say my package, sent from a verified retailer, is contraband? She lifted one shoulder in a lazy shrug. Rules are rules. Mark scoffed. That's not a rule, Brenda. You're making this up as you go. The other neighbors murmured in agreement. Some of them looked furious. A few looked nervous. People who had clearly been bullied by Brenda before, but never had the courage to speak out. Brenda must have sensed the shifting tide because she suddenly straightened her posture, her tone hardening. Look, you people don't understand how much work it takes to run a community like this. We have standards. I was simply enforcing them. No, I said, taking a step forward. You were stealing. And you just admitted it in front of witnesses. Brenda's mouth opened, then snapped shut. Give me my package, I said again, my patience gone. She stared me down for several long seconds, then sighed dramatically. Fine, but don't come crying to me if the HOA fines you for breaking the rules. I held back a laugh. I'll take my chances. She turned on her heel and disappeared inside, slamming the door behind her. I exchanged a glance with Mark. She's stalling, obviously, he muttered. She's probably trying to figure out how to cover her tracks. Minutes passed, then 5, then 10. I rang the doorbell again. No answer. I knocked hard. Brenda, I know you're in there. Silence. Mark exhaled. She's really going to play this game, huh? One of the other neighbors pulled out their phone. Should we call the police? Before I could answer, the door finally flew open. Brenda stood there, red-faced, but not from embarrassment, from fury. Your stupid package is missing, she snapped. I frowned. Missing? What do you mean, missing? I placed it in the compliance office, and now it's gone. My stomach dropped. You're lying. Her nostrils flared. I don't have it. Someone must have taken it after I stored it away. Mark scoffed. Oh, so now you're the victim? Brenda's eyes darted between us. I can't control what happens after I confiscate items. I laughed bitterly. You're telling me you stole my package, hid it, and now it's magically vanished? Convenient. I did not steal it, she screeched. I was following policy. Enough with the policy excuse, I snapped. Either you return my package, or we escalate this to law enforcement. Brenda hesitated, her hands clenched into fists. She knew she was cornered. Before she could spew another excuse, one of the other neighbors, Diane, a woman in her 60s, spoke up. We can check the compliance office, can't we? I'm on the HOA board. I have a key. Brenda's face turned white. That won't be necessary. Diane pulled out her keychain. Let's go then. Brenda didn't have a choice. The group followed Diane down the street to the so-called compliance office, which, as it turned out, was just an old storage shed near the community center. Diane unlocked the door and swung it open. And there it was. Not just my package, but dozens of them, stacked haphazardly on shelves. Some opened, others still sealed. Gasps filled the air. Mark whistled. Well. Looks like we found Brenda's little treasure trove. I stepped inside, scanning the labels. These weren't abandoned packages. These were stolen. Brenda stood frozen in the doorway, her face a mixture of panic and rage. You can't be in here. Diane ignored her, picking up a box with her own name on it. This is mine. This was delivered last month. Others started recognizing their packages too. The murmur of shock turned into outrage. I turned back to Brenda, my heart pounding with satisfaction. This isn't just HOA overreach, I said slowly. This is theft, and you're about to pay for it. Brenda opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked scared, and she should be, because I wasn't letting this go. The neighbors weren't either. Brenda had spent years abusing her power, thinking she was above the law. But today she had finally lost control. I stood in the middle of the so-called compliance office, surrounded by stacks of stolen packages, while Brenda stood frozen at the door. The shocked murmurs of my neighbors turned into whispers of outrage. Mark was the first to speak. Brenda, what the hell is this? She blinked rapidly, her face twisting between panic and defiance. This is a misunderstanding. Diane held up her missing package. A misunderstanding, Brenda? This has my name on it. It was supposed to be delivered a month ago. Others started rummaging through the piles, recognizing their own lost deliveries. The deeper we dug, the worse it got. Some packages had been opened, their contents missing. Expensive items, electronics, jewelry boxes, even prescription medication were nowhere to be found. My blood boiled. How long have you been doing this? Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You don't understand. Oh, I think we understand perfectly, I snapped. You've been stealing from your own neighbors and hiding behind fake HOA rules. Her panic flickered into anger. That's not true. I was protecting these items. We have policies against unattended deliveries. If anything, I should be thanked for preventing porch piracy. Mark laughed in disbelief. You are the porch pirate, Brenda. The gathered crowd erupted in agreement. Some were already taking pictures, recording videos, evidence that would end her reign of terror once and for all. I turned to Diane. We need to report this. Diane nodded. I'll call the police. Brenda lunged at her. No, wait. This is an internal HOA matter. There's no need to involve outsiders. I stepped between them. It's mail theft, Brenda. That's a federal crime. This isn't just an HOA issue anymore. Her expression twisted in desperation. You can't do this. I have connections. I'll have you all fined. I'll revoke your community privileges. Mark crossed his arms. Brenda, shut up. You're done. She knew it too. Her power was slipping through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Diane stepped to the side, phone to her ear. Yes, I'd like to report a case of mail theft. Multiple stolen packages. Yes, we have the evidence. Brenda collapsed into a lawn chair inside the shed, gripping her forehead. You're all making a mistake, she muttered, shaking her head. I was just doing my job. I turned to the others. This goes deeper than just stolen mail. We need to find out everything Brenda's been hiding. Mark smirked. Lucky for you. I have an idea. Mark was an ex-accountant. More importantly, he hated Brenda. He'd had run-ins with her before. Unjust fines, fake HOA rules, threats of liens. He knew she was crooked. What we need, Mark said, pulling out his laptop, is proof that she's been abusing HOA funds too. Because I guarantee she has. We set up at Mark's house a few streets down. He had a lot of HOA documents saved from previous disputes. Meanwhile, Diane was at the compliance office, making a list of every stolen package we found. Using public records and leaked HOA meeting notes, Mark began piecing together a trail of corruption. And what we found, it was worse than we imagined. Unauthorized HOA fees. Over the last 2 years, Brenda had issued dozens of fake violations, random $50 and $100 fines that had no legal basis. Most homeowners had just paid them to avoid trouble. Misuse of HOA funds. She had approved reimbursements for community projects that never happened. Thousands of dollars were unaccounted for. Selective enforcement. Some residents had been fined for things like leaving their trash cans out too long, while her own friends had gotten away with real violations like unapproved construction, illegally parked RVs, and loud parties. Personal expenses. Brenda had used HOA funds for business trips, but there were no records of what those trips were for. Mark dug deeper. Turns out, she had used HOA money to buy personal items, furniture, plane tickets, even spa treatments. We weren't just dealing with mail theft anymore. Brenda was running a full-blown scam. By the time we returned to the scene, the police had arrived. An officer was speaking with Diane and some of the other neighbors, taking statements. Brenda? She was pacing outside the shed, arms flailing as she desperately tried to explain herself. I didn't steal anything. This is an overreaction. These people just don't understand how an HOA is supposed to work. The officer raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, we have security footage of you taking packages from multiple homes. That's not stealing, she shrieked. I was following protocol. One of the officers turned to us. Does anyone have proof of this so-called protocol? Diane, barely containing her grin, handed over a copy of the official HOA bylaws. There's nothing in here about confiscating mail. Brenda turned pale. The officer sighed. All right, ma'am, step aside. We're going to document all of this. Brenda's lip trembled. You can't do this to me. Oh, we absolutely can, I said, stepping forward. And we're not done. I handed the officer Mark's report, a full breakdown of her financial fraud, unauthorized fines, and embezzlement. The cop's eyebrows shot up. Well, this just went from bad to worse. Brenda snatched the papers from his hand. This is hearsay. None of this is proven. Mark smirked. It will be once a proper audit is done. The officer took the report back. We'll be investigating this as well. If this information checks out, you're looking at more than just mail theft. Brenda started hyperventilating. You're ruining my life. I crossed my arms. You did that to yourself. She turned to her dwindling crowd of supporters. You all owe me. I made this neighborhood what it is. One of her longtime defenders, a cranky old man named Stanley, sighed. Brenda, I've been on your side for years, but this is disgusting. You're on your own. Brenda snapped. You traitors. You're all ungrateful. I was just doing what was best for this community. The officer turned to her. Ma'am, I think we've heard enough. Before she could respond, the officer pulled out his handcuffs. You're under arrest for mail theft. Brenda screamed, No, you can't. I'm the HOA president. But the cuffs clicked into place. I watched as she was led toward the patrol car, kicking and wailing the whole way. And just like that, the reign of Brenda was over. Mark leaned over. So what's the plan now? I grinned. Oh, I'm not done yet. The HOA is getting a full overhaul. No more fake fines. No more stolen money. We're taking our neighborhood back. Mark chuckled. I like the sound of that. I looked toward the patrol car as Brenda's muffled screams filled the air. Justice. And trust me, it was long overdue. I wasn't satisfied with just seeing Brenda squirm. I wanted her to face real consequences, the kind she couldn't talk her way out of. She had stolen from too many people, manipulated the HOA for years, and walked away every time without so much as a slap on the wrist. Not this time. With the evidence we had collected, Brenda was already on thin ice. The police were investigating, but I knew how these things worked. It could take weeks for the authorities to go through the stolen packages, track the missing items, and build a proper case. That was time Brenda could use to weasel her way out. I needed something undeniable, something that would force law enforcement to act immediately. So I set a trap. The plan was simple. I would bait Brenda into stealing again. This time, I would catch her in the act with overwhelming evidence, leaving her with zero room to lie her way out. Step 1. I ordered a package, a fake one. Inside was nothing more than an old phone box with a tracking device tucked inside. On the outside, it looked valuable, wrapped in branded packaging labeled as containing electronics worth over $1,000. Step 2. I set up multiple cameras. My home security already covered the porch, but I installed a second hidden camera in a nearby potted plant. I even coordinated with Mark, who had a clear view from his house, to record from his angle too. Step 3. I waited. The package arrived in the morning, just as expected. The delivery driver placed it carefully by my door, took a photo for confirmation, and drove off. Everything was set. I went inside, pulled up the security feed on my laptop, and watched. It didn't take long. Brenda couldn't resist. Less than 30 minutes later, I saw her marching up my driveway, her fake, self-important strut on full display. She didn't even hesitate. She glanced around once, didn't even bother to check my cameras, then bent down, snatched the package, and walked away like it was hers. I clenched my fists, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was exactly what I needed. She had no idea she had just walked into the biggest mistake of her life. I let her go. The tracker inside the box showed her exact location, straight to her house. I gave it 10 minutes, then texted Mark. She took the bait. Time for phase 2. Mark texted back instantly. On it. While I went to confront Brenda, Mark was already making calls to the HOA board members, to the neighbors, and most importantly, to the police. I walked up to Brenda's house, knocked on the door, and stepped back, arms crossed. A moment later, she answered, and the instant she saw me, her expression soured. "You again," she said, rolling her eyes. I smirked. "Cut the act, Brenda. I know you took my package." "Again," she scoffed, folding her arms. "I have no idea what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and pressed play. There she was, clear as day, grabbing the package from my porch. Her face went pale. "You broke the law, Brenda," I said, my voice calm but firm. "And this time, I have everything I need to make sure you get exactly what you deserve." She snapped out of her shock, her expression twisting into anger. "You're harassing me. I'll report you to the HOA for intimidation." I laughed. "Oh, you think the HOA is going to help you? You really haven't been paying attention, have you?" Before she could respond, the sound of sirens cut through the air. Her eyes widened. I stepped aside just as 2 police cars rolled up, red and blue lights flashing. Neighbors started peeking out of their homes, whispering. A few even came outside, pulling out their phones to record everything. One of the officers stepped out, adjusting his belt. "Brenda Thompson?" Brenda took a step back. "Yes? What is this about?" The officer glanced at me, then back at her. "We received a report of a stolen package. Do you have it in your possession?" Brenda's mouth opened, then closed. She knew she was cornered. I don't have anything," she stammered. The officer lifted an eyebrow. "Is that so?" He turned to me, and I held up my phone, showing the real-time tracking data from the hidden device inside the box. "According to this," I said, "my package is inside her house right now." Brenda's face went completely white. The second officer, a woman, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we'll need you to return the package immediately." Brenda snapped. "This is a setup. He's trying to frame me." The first officer sighed. "Ma'am, we have you on camera taking the package. If you refuse to cooperate, we will obtain a warrant and escalate this further." Brenda's lips trembled. "You have one chance," the female officer added. "Return the package now." Brenda hesitated. Her eyes darted toward the growing crowd of neighbors, the officers, the flashing lights. She had no way out. After what felt like an eternity, she turned stiffly and stormed back into her house. Seconds later, she returned, holding the package. She shoved it into the officer's hands, her face twisted in fury. "There. Happy now." The officer took the package and handed it to me. "Sir, can you confirm this is yours?" I turned it over in my hands, pretending to inspect it. "Yep, this is it." The officer nodded, then turned back to Brenda. "Ma'am, at this time, you are being placed under arrest for mail theft." Brenda's entire body locked up. No, you can't do this." But the handcuffs were already coming out. She tried to back away, but the female officer grabbed her wrist. "You are under arrest," she repeated, "for federal mail theft, fraud, and additional charges pending investigation." Brenda started screaming. "This is illegal. You can't arrest the HOA president. I have rights. I'm in charge here." The officers didn't care. They spun her around, cuffed her hands behind her back, and started leading her to the squad car. I turned to Mark, who was grinning like an idiot. "That was beautiful," he said. I crossed my arms, watching as Brenda was shoved into the back of the car, still screeching. Neighbors were cheering. Some were clapping. Others were already posting videos online. And just like that, Brenda's reign of terror came to an end. I walked up to the patrol car as the officers finished their paperwork. Brenda's furious, tear-streaked face glared at me through the window. "You're going to regret this," she snarled. I smiled. "No, Brenda. The only person regretting anything is you." With that, the officer shut the door, climbed into the vehicle, and drove off. Mark clapped me on the back. "That's one hell of a victory, man." I exhaled, feeling lighter than I had in months. Yeah, I said. And it's only the beginning. As the police car drove off with Brenda still screaming inside, the entire neighborhood erupted into a mix of cheers and stunned silence. People had been waiting for this moment for years, but no one had ever dared to challenge her like this. Now their tyrant was finally gone, dragged away in handcuffs, her empire collapsing around her. Mark stood beside me, shaking his head in disbelief. I never thought I'd see the day. Diane crossed her arms, smirking. Couldn't have happened to a better person. But I knew this wasn't over yet. Brenda had ruled through fear and manipulation. Her removal meant the HOA was now leaderless, and the people who had enabled her were still in power. If we didn't act fast, someone just as bad, or worse, could step up to take her place. I turned to the gathered crowd, raising my voice. This isn't just about Brenda. She may be gone, but her damage is still here. The HOA is corrupt, and it's time we take it back. The neighbors exchanged glances, nodding. People were ready for change. But first, I needed to make sure Brenda never came back. Even after being arrested, Brenda refused to go down quietly. The next day, I got a call from Mark, who had spoken to a friend at the police department. Apparently, Brenda had completely lost it at the station. The officers barely got her through booking before she snapped. She threw a tantrum, screaming at the cops about how they were making a huge mistake. She demanded to speak to the mayor, claimed she had powerful friends, and even threatened to sue the entire police department. None of it worked. They charged her with multiple counts of mail theft, fraud, and misappropriation of funds. Since we had overwhelming evidence, including security footage, eyewitness testimonies, and stolen property found in her possession, her case was open and shut. And because mail theft is a federal crime, this wasn't something she could just sweep under the rug with a bribe or an HOA technicality. She was in serious trouble. Best of all, her own lawyer allegedly told her that her best bet was to plead guilty and try to cut a deal. Brenda? Plead guilty? Not a chance. She refused, still convinced she could talk her way out of it. While Brenda was throwing fits in a holding cell, Mark and I were digging deeper into her mess. And it didn't take long before we hit gold. Brenda had been embezzling HOA funds for years. The budget reports didn't add up, and thousands of dollars had disappeared with no explanation. Fake fines and fabricated violations had been issued to homeowners Brenda didn't like. Some people had paid thousands just to avoid legal threats. Selective enforcement had allowed Brenda's friends to get away with massive violations while others had been fined for minor infractions, like having the wrong color mailbox. This wasn't just bad leadership. This was fraud. And once we exposed it to the entire community, things blew up. That evening, Diane organized an emergency HOA meeting. At least 50 homeowners showed up, way more than the usual handful who bothered to attend. The tension in the air was thick. People were furious. Some had lost money, others had been bullied, and everyone wanted justice. Mark and I took the floor, laying out everything we had found. The stolen mail, the embezzled funds, the fake violations. Every dirty secret Brenda had tried to bury was now out in the open. The HOA board members, most of whom had been Brenda's loyal enforcers, tried to deflect, claiming they had no idea what was going on. Nobody believed them. Someone shouted, "You sat by and let her get away with it." Another person yelled, "You helped her. You're just as guilty." The meeting turned into a full-scale revolt. One homeowner stood up. I motioned to dissolve the current HOA board. A chorus of voices cheered in agreement. Diane took control, raising her hands for silence. All in favor of removing the current board and electing new leadership? A sea of hands shot into the air. The vote was unanimous. Just like that, Brenda's entire inner circle was gone. With the HOA under new management, we worked fast. All unjust fines were voided and refunded. A full audit was launched to track down the missing HOA funds. New rules were put in place to prevent another Brenda from ever taking power again. But the best part? Brenda's trial date was set. When she finally faced the judge, she was a shadow of the woman who once ruled over the neighborhood with an iron fist. Her usual smugness was gone. Her lawyer had tried to argue for leniency, claiming she was just enforcing community standards and that this was all a misunderstanding. The judge wasn't buying it. Brenda was found guilty on multiple charges, including mail theft, fraud, and financial misconduct. Her sentence: a hefty fine that would wipe out her personal savings, restitution payments to the people she had stolen from, community service. The irony was delicious, and best of all, a permanent ban from holding any HOA position ever again. She barely escaped jail time, but her life was ruined. She lost her reputation, her power, and her home. Unable to pay her legal fees, she had to sell her house and move out of the neighborhood entirely. The reign of HOA Brenda was officially over. With Brenda gone, things finally changed. For the first time in years, our neighborhood felt like a community again. No more petty fines, no more fear of HOA retaliation, no more Brenda. The new HOA board focused on actual improvements, better maintenance, community events, and policies that actually helped homeowners instead of punishing them. One afternoon, Mark, Diane, and I stood outside, watching as a moving truck pulled away from Brenda's old house. Mark chuckled. Never thought I'd see the day. Diane smirked. Good riddance. I watched the truck disappear down the street, exhaling in satisfaction. She got what she deserved. Brenda had spent years terrorizing us, but in the end, she destroyed herself. Justice had been served, and for the first time in a long time, life in the neighborhood was finally peaceful. With Brenda gone, the neighborhood finally felt free. No more surprise fines, no more nitpicking about trash cans, no more random HOA violations conveniently benefiting Brenda and her friends. For the first time in years, people could enjoy their homes without the constant fear of being harassed. The HOA, now under new leadership, was undergoing a complete overhaul. The stolen funds were being tracked, and legal action was underway to reclaim what Brenda had taken. Even better, the HOA fees were lowered since, surprise, surprise, it turned out most of them had been unnecessary padding to fund Brenda's personal luxuries. It was a victory in every way possible. But as I enjoyed the peace, a nagging feeling stayed in the back of my mind. Brenda may have been defeated, but something told me this wasn't over. A few weeks after Brenda's sentencing, I received something unexpected in the mail, a letter. No return address, just my name typed in all caps. I opened it, my gut instinct already telling me who it was from. Brenda. The handwriting was erratic, like she had written it in a rush or in anger. You think you've won, but this isn't over. You ruined my life, and I promise you, I'll be back. That was it. No apology, no remorse, just pure hatred. I stared at the letter, debating whether to laugh or feel uneasy. Brenda was delusional. She had done all of this to herself. She had stolen from her neighbors. She had abused her power. She had lied to everyone for years. And yet, in her mind, she was the victim. It was pathetic. Mark laughed when I showed him. She's bluffing. What's she going to do? Start an HOA in prison? Diane snorted. Or maybe she'll fine her cellmates for having unapproved bed sheets. We joked about it, but deep down, I had a feeling Brenda wasn't done. Some people never let go of their grudges. Some people live for revenge. And Brenda? She was the type to hold on to resentment forever. At first, everything seemed fine. Brenda was gone, and the neighborhood was better than ever. But then things started happening, strange things. At first, it was small stuff. A neighbor's car was keyed overnight. The community mailbox was vandalized. Someone had ripped open a few slots as if looking for something. HOA files mysteriously went missing from the new president's office. Nothing that screamed Brenda, but it felt off. Then one night, Mark called me. His voice was dead serious. You need to see this. I rushed over, and he pulled up his security footage. There, in the dead of night, a figure was lurking outside my house, watching. I squinted at the screen, my stomach twisting. The quality was grainy, but the posture, the mannerisms, that's not Brenda, I said, shaking my head. Mark zoomed in. No, but it's someone who works for her. I frowned. What do you mean? He hesitated. Remember how Brenda always bragged about her connections? A chill ran down my spine. Brenda may have been gone, but what if she had friends still in the neighborhood? What if she wasn't working alone? I decided to set up extra cameras, covering every angle of my property, and it paid off. A few nights later, I caught someone breaking into my mailbox. This time, I got a clear look at their face. It wasn't Brenda, but it was one of her closest HOA enforcers, the same woman who had backed her up in every meeting, the same woman who had helped enforce fake fines. She was still here, still loyal to Brenda. I called the police immediately. By morning, the new HOA president had pulled records and discovered that this woman, let's call her Linda, had been meeting with Brenda's lawyer and passing messages from prison. Brenda was still pulling strings from behind bars. Her plan? She wanted to sabotage the HOA, to make it collapse under the new leadership. If she couldn't have control, she wanted revenge. But now she was caught, and so was Linda. The police got involved, and Linda was arrested for trespassing and mail tampering. The final remnants of Brenda's influence had been removed for good. With Linda gone, the last of Brenda's followers had crumbled. Brenda was officially powerless. Word got out about her failed revenge scheme, and suddenly her prison sentence got extended. Tampering with an ongoing investigation is a big deal. The last thing I heard, she had been transferred to a different facility far away, where she couldn't reach anyone. Her house sold off, her legacy destroyed. She went from queen of the HOA to a disgraced ex-convict. And me? I could finally relax. One evening, Mark, Diane, and I sat outside, enjoying the quiet. The neighborhood was peaceful again. No drama, no corruption, no Brenda. Diane took a sip of her drink. Think she'll ever try something again? Mark smirked. If she does, she'll be dealing with us. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the past few months lift off my shoulders. She lost, I said simply. She's done. And deep down, I knew it was true. Brenda had spent years terrorizing this community, and now she was nothing more than a bad memory. Justice had been served, and the best part? She had done it to herself.